Okay, let's dive straight back into the nightmare, exactly where we left off. This explainer takes us directly back onto that freezing mountain bus, picking up the horrifying events from our last deep dive. Aarav is trapped, right? He's staring into the rearview mirror, but his reflection isn't mimicking him anymore. It's staring back, and it is smiling.
We are immediately hit with a terrifying scenario. Seriously, what do you do when your own reflection raises 3 fingers and actually knocks on the inside of the glass? Aarav watches this in absolute horror, forcing his driver, Mohan, to just slam on the brakes. But here's the thing. They aren't just stopped on a wet road. They're trapped in this supernatural spatial loop. The bus keeps driving forward at 50 kilometers an hour, yet they keep passing the exact same 7-kilometer Dharan wooden sign, again and again. There's no way out.
Section 1. The Endless Mountain Road and the Rules. So, Mohan finally reveals the horrifying truth. They aren't just physically stuck, they are being actively kept by the mountain. The entity has them, and it is not letting them leave. To survive, Mohan pulls out a small wooden box filled with these folded pieces of paper. These are his rules for surviving Dharan. Never answer the third knock. Never look into a mirror after midnight. And the most terrifying one of all, if someone you love returns, ask them what they forgot. The crucial point here is the vulnerability of the supernatural copies. These rules highlighted terrifying reality. You see, the copies know absolutely everything the original person remembered, but they have a massive blind spot. They have no idea what the original forgot. That is exactly how you test them.
But guys, the entity is adapting incredibly fast. The horror really escalates when Aarav looks out the bus window and notices his reflection is slightly delayed. It raises its hand a literal second too late. Then it begins mimicking him and actually whispering his name to learn his voice. It repeats Aarav over and over, faster and faster, until it suddenly switches to an entirely different name, Raghav, his grandfather's name.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Sins of the Past.
To explain exactly why the entity in the glass is using his grandfather's name, Mohan finally breaks his 30-year silence. Tracking the timeline all the way back to October 1996, Mohan actually drove Raghav up the mountain with a small wooden box containing a black mirror. Raghav went out into the dark to save Mira, leaving Mohan waiting in the vehicle. Hours go by. Finally, Raghav returns empty-handed. But when he sat in the car, he sat completely still and asked Mohan a bizarre, chilling question. "Can you still see my reflection?" Mohan checked the mirror and the reflection smiled, raised 3 fingers, and knocked. Mohan fled in absolute terror. This brilliantly illustrates a dark, dark truth. The man who came back to the car wasn't Raghav at all. It was the very first copy to leave the mountain.
Back in the present, the terror on the bus spikes again when Tara's voice begins begging for help from the darkness outside. Using Mohan's rule, Aarav tests her. He shouts into the void, asking her what she forgot, but Mira's ghostly voice answers instead, warning him that the copy doesn't remember why she loved him. Tara's deadly silence out there in the dark proves she is a copy. The real Tara is still trapped inside the mountain.
Section 3, the Belly of the Beast.
Suddenly, the bus engine completely dies. With this deep, earth-shattering rumbling, the mountain literally cracks open, revealing a path that absolutely was not there before. And at the end of it sits his grandfather's house, impossibly buried deep within the solid stone. Stepping inside this physical manifestation of a memory, Aarav is confronted by the young, alive version of his grandfather Raghav. And Raghav finally defines the true nature of the ancient horror they've been fighting. It's called the Listener. It is an ancient parasitic entity that has existed beneath the Dharan since before the village was even built. It doesn't hunt people like a traditional monster with teeth and claws. It listens, learns, and anchors itself to human memory in a desperate bid to escape the mountain.
But why Aarav, right? Well, Aarav believed this was his first time visiting Dharan as an adult. But the truth is horrifyingly different. 6-year-old Aarav visited the village, opened that cursed eastern window, and actually promised Mira he would return to her. The crucial takeaway here is that Aarav's grandmother deliberately erased his childhood memory of the entity touching him, all to protect him from the truth. Raghav looks right at him and says, "Because half of you is already inside it." This flawlessly explains why the listener wants Aarav now. When the entity touched 6-year-old Aarav, it couldn't consume him entirely, so it took his memories instead. Aarav is literally the only person in his family who can hear the entity without being immediately copied, because it already consumed his lost, forgotten fragments years ago.
Section 4. The Forgotten First Child.
Venturing deeper into the mountain's twisting corridors to save Tara, Aarav finds this hallway just plastered with hundreds of photographs. One photograph from 1996 shows 37 people instead of the usual 36, and standing in the back, it's Aarav himself as a young boy, but his face is violently scratched out. Mira appears in the dark corridor and delivers the most devastating twist of this entire explainer. She tells him he is in that 30-year-old photograph because you were born twice. The original Aarav didn't just forget, he actually died during that childhood visit when he opened the window.
The psychological dread here is just profound. The original Aarav died at age 6. He was consumed by the listener, and he remembers everything that was forgotten. The current Aarav, the man we've been following this whole time, is merely a replacement. He is just the leftover fragment the entity failed to perfectly consume and copy.
And the terror absolutely peaks when Aarav is confronted by the sinister other Aarav, the original, smiling version the entity kept. The other Aarav sneers at him, "You're bringing it with you." Instantly, the mountain violently begins to collapse. Rocks are falling, corridors are twisting. Our leftover Aarav and Mira are forced into a desperate, frantic sprint, running for their absolute lives through the shifting, crushing stone.
Section 5. The Escape and the Infection.
Following a blinding flash, Aarav seemingly escapes the crumbling mountain, waking up on the side of the road with Mohan, but Mira is completely gone. And in Aarav's hand is a photograph that ominously reads, "Tara is still alive." The claustrophobic horror then escalates to a whole new level when his phone rings. It's Tara. She whispers that she has bypassed the mountain entirely and is already inside his city apartment. The entity used Aarav's escape to break free.
Desperate for safety, Aarav races all the way back to the city, only to find his ultimate safe space totally violated. His apartment is compromised, and to make matters worse, as they drove back, Aarav looked into the rearview mirror and saw Mohan's reflection, smiling, confirming his driver was also infected. Nowhere is safe. Standing in his dark city kitchen, a woman turns to him. It's Tara, but her eyes are completely black. She reminds him of the promise his 6-year-old self made. "You promised." And then, chillingly, his city window slowly opens, blowing in freezing air to reveal the Himalayan mountains of Dharan right outside his urban apartment. Distance no longer matters. The mountain is here.
His phone rings again. A child's voice whispers, "You forgot me." And from the open kitchen window come 3 familiar sounds. 3 knocks. The final, horrific truth about the entity's signature sound is now completely recontextualized.
We finally understand the true terror here. The knocks aren't just a request to enter. They are a methodical, terrifying countdown. 1 knock for the past, 2 knocks for the present, and 3 knocks for the version of him that is still waiting. We realize, with absolute dread, that the infection has spread, and the entity is already inside his world.
Which leads us directly to the end of our journey today. Think about this. If the entity kept the original Aarav inside the mountain, and the leftover Aarav brought the infection out to the city, who is really sitting in his apartment right now? I leave you with this final, chilling question to ponder until our next explainer. Keep your windows locked and stay curious.